Don't normally speak to a bunch of people, but we'll give it a go. So obviously everybody knows I bought 1068 from John Smith's collection, 909 as well, sitting there. We got her back in May last year, brought her up here, started piecing everything together, got all the bits. Later on when we're done here we can go over and show you guys a few things in the hangar. I've got the rear fuselage over there with all the skins removed. Starting to go through, remove all the corrosion. There's a fair bit down the back unfortunately, probably similar to what Brendan Dare's dealing with the Mustang, from all the rats that were living inside them. Other than that, the rest of it's pretty good. We haven't got to the wings yet. I'd say that might be a bit of a disaster, but we'll deal with them. Centre section looks alright. Haven't really gone through it yet as well. All the control surfaces we've got some really good ailerons that really don't need much done to them. Some new fabric, check they're straight, all that. Couple of rudders. Will need some serious overhaul. They're well bent from obviously many ground loops at Wigram and Wahaka. We've got some undercarriage legs. Most of them pretty good, but most of John Smith's stuff was everything that the Air Force didn't want, basically. It was stuffed, needed a rebuild, broken. Hence most of the gear doors and everything have all got holes in them, rivets pulled, big cracks. Same with the undercarriage legs, they've all had ground loops, broken, bent, all that lovely things. Same with the wings, we've got more of one side than the other. They've all had a tweak at some point from the ground loop. What else we got? Obviously, all the bits we've got upstairs in the hangar. And I believe, well, I won't go too far into that, but Frank's going to talk about that later. What else can I say about 68? So basically, everybody would, if you've seen the ADF serials page on the internet, you'll know a bit about her history. I won't talk about it. She was brought on charge in 1943 with the Air Force up in Hobsonville. Spent her life in the Air Force between Tyree, Wigram, Woodburn. I believe, thanks to Dave, and we found a logbook entry. She actually flew out of this airfield on that southeast apron in 1943. She left Ardmore, went down to Wigram. Spent most of her, doubled up on that. Spent most of her life between Tyree and Wigram. She got put into long-term storage in 1945. Removed from long-term storage in 1950, I believe it was. Yep, 1950. Flown up to Wahaka for a VHF radio mod, and some of you guys might have seen on the forum I had there regarding that, asking a few questions and if anybody knew what they were doing to them, because we've got conflicting evidence of HF and VHF. One of the guys here has been helping us out, it's got that sorted now. So we've got a full ARC-5 radio system for it. It all works. We've spoken to people around the countryside from his hangar, which is kind of scary. I don't know if I wanted to sit next to that stuff in the airplane, but got all that. And then, so that was obviously pieced together with the AP, one of the APs I had at Wahaka when it went up there. That flew for another couple of years. It had 1956, it had done 3,308.10 hours. They'd rebuilt the wings, both wings, tail planes. It flew for one more year, so it flew another 300 hours in that 1 year, and then she got turned to an instructional airframe and sent to Woodburn. We don't know why she got turned to an instructional airframe. Our best guess is they just picked a bunch of them and decided they would do. So anyway, she got sent there. Obviously all the guys that play with it, we've actually found a bunch of names inside the aircraft on one of the voltage regulator panels. It's got a bunch of names, 57, 58 Woodburn, bunch of names. We enjoyed our stay, but we're glad to be leaving. So we've got that history of the aircraft, that's all going to stay with it, we're not going to touch that. Just clear code over the names and it can go back on the aeroplane. So once it left its instructional life, it went to a guy, we believe, down in Cliff, get it right, Cliff Horrell, down in Geraldine. There's a farmer. Now, speaking to Philip Burns on the phone last week, first time I got a hold of him actually, he used to own my aircraft. Got all this history that I'm about to tell you now that I wasn't aware of. So the aircraft was down in Geraldine was this gentleman. He needed to move it around his farm and it didn't have any undercarriage on it, so he dragged it around by the centre section, by the rear fuselage, hence the big hole in the rear fuselage that my father and myself are now dealing with. Thank him very much for that. So you put a rope through the rear fuselage. You can basically see on 909, if you have a look at the back end, there's a bit of a hole there to get to the steering cables for the tail wheel and everything else, and basically dragged it around his house and tore a big hole through the back end of it. It went from him to a guy called Alan Boyd, who kept the, it would have been 1974. Went to a gentleman there. He kept it in the Yolshurst Museum. You may have seen a couple of photos I put up that John Saunders actually forwarded me from John Smith's house. Put a few of those photos up, towing it with an old Ford van when Philip Burns purchased it, 1956. Sorry, not 56, 76, what am I talking about? He owned it for many years. He collected a bunch of parts. There's a couple of photos I'll put up later on the forum so you can all see that. Actually a photo from a Christchurch newspaper with him sitting next to it in his backyard with all the parts piled up and him sitting in the rear seat. So anyway, he owned it for a few years. He had an engine. He had dreams of starting it up every now and again, taxiing it around, make a bit of noise and annoy the neighbours. And then he obviously got told by his wife where it was that it needed to go, so he sold it to John Smith, who graciously said yes, along with the rest of his aeroplanes. So they towed it over there, full of bits, rear fuselage. Imagine there's a big hole, an inspection hole, it's just the whole rear fuselage chocked with parts. They couldn't fit anything else in there apparently. So John Smith took that, got some photos I'll put up as well, at his place next to the Mozzie sitting out in the yard. So obviously from that point on John Smith's had it. He's probably pulled a few things out of it and stored them in boxes and everything else because we're slowly getting all the bits we're missing. And yeah, from then, basically obviously we all know what happened to them, unfortunately. So last year in May, me, Frank Parker, Ace Edwards and a few of the other guys went down there and picked all the hard bits up. I would say Frank owned 68 for a few weeks until I paid him. And they didn't get the bank account for a while. But so yeah, and that's gone on to myself and my father. And yeah, basically that's the history, as much history as I can give you at this point in time, and obviously keep an eye on the forum. I'll put up some more details and photos and try and match everything up. Got any questions? Anything, Dave?
Did you talk about the colour scheme?
Oh, I was going to keep that secret.
Okay.
I'll wind you all up and say I'm going to paint in US Navy colours, it'll get you going. No, it's basically we're going to do it as the early 50s scheme, the silver and yellow bands, same as Masterman's 33. Basically painted the same as that. I feel it's something different. It had the checkers on it, but sort of there's a few of them. We've got 52 with the checkers, and I thought this makes something totally different. So it sort of sticks out. It's only fitting because the chipmunk that I'm learning to fly, Liz's one, silver and yellow bands. So. I don't have one.
What's the plan?
Well, obviously when we get further down the road there, it's going to be many years before we even have to worry about that one. But I've got a couple lined up around Ardmore. A couple of companies have got some that have been sitting there for 10 years, so we'll have to pull them apart and have a look, but they'll obviously be sent away to the States for an overhaul if we can't do it here.